Hi, everybody. And first of all, we are in two of us, and I'm pleased to introduce you to John Kearns. And John Kearns is the CEO of Partas. And I'm sure later on he will introduce himself during the presentation. Now, first of all, I want to welcome you, everyone. We have Michelle, Aisling, Tina, and Nora. So thank you very much. Now, I have to ask you a question. Just making sure that the audio is okay on your side. Can you please use the chat to tell me if you can hear me? The chat is the same tab that you use to introduce. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ashlyn. Perfect. Okay, so the numbers are going up of attendees, but I would say that we stick to the time and we start straight away with the presentation. Now, the presentation obviously is about the redesign for social enterprise program that is starting in March in 3 different Dublin locations. And this session is really to give you an introduction of the topics that we are going to cover in the course, the location, the logistic of the course. Now, what I would suggest is that we have a presentation made, but anytime you have a question, please use the chat box or the box that you find below the presentation to ask any question that you might have. We might keep the question for the end of the session, but if we see that there is a relevant question, we might take your question straight away. Okay, so let's get started. We want to start by introducing myself first and say that my name is Stefano and I am a design strategist. And I know every time that I present myself as the design strategist is a little bit confusing because it's kind of saying I am a consultant or I am a trainer. The reality is that I help organizations to bring the two minds together. The creative minds through design, but also the rational minds through strategy, the conventional way that we used to think about strategy. And is kind of an emerging field of study, strategic design. And in this course, we are going to use particularly the design thinking, so the creativity part of a business model. But I will make sure that also there will be the strategic part of it. How do we make sure that we are positioned in the right part of the market in order to deliver value for our users? Now, I didn't know till yesterday that John would have, join us today. So let me give John the possibility to introduce Partas, is the CEO of Partas, and The Edge.
Okay, thank you, Stefano. Yeah, I'm John Kearns, CEO of Partas, and I've been involved in both social enterprise and design for some time. Social enterprise, I'm on the Social Enterprise Task Force, and I'm an expert advisor to the EU Commission on social enterprise. So social enterprise going back a long time through all its iterations, from social economy to social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, social innovation, social impact, all of those kind of areas. Partas is a long-established social enterprise itself since 1986, so 34 years. So we have a fair amount of experience, both from the social enterprise side, as I say, and also from the design. Our first foray into design was maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when we did a very large international project developing a toolkit for design, particularly in use of providing services within the public sector, a program called the Spider program. And it was particularly interesting. I have to say, at the start, I wasn't sure about design. I kind of thought, is this some fancy dressing up of something that we already know? And I had to get involved in it before I really realized the full power that's innate within design. Because you have to leave behind, I'm a very rational person, and in a way, design helps you to leave that rational side behind and use some tools to look at things from a different way. Actually use your hands to look at the perspective. And you kind of think, well, Partas deals in unemployment. How can I use my hands to understand unemployment? Bear with it. Be skeptical at the start by all means, but I can tell you that I've been that skeptical person, and I'm completely convinced of the power of design. It is new to introduce design into the world of social enterprise. We have no problem in the world of social enterprise in our hearts, in our mission, in what it is we do. We might need to be a bit more strategic about it. And this is a way of looking at what we do and who we do it for and how we do it and why we do it in a really, really fresh way that should invigorate and dynamize the work that we do. And it really doesn't matter whether you're coming to this as a beginner or whether you're already well involved in social enterprise. Design is a fresh approach that gives it to you. Now, just to say a word about the edge, Partas has been managing 4 enterprise centers in the Tallaght area for the last 34 years. The edge is itself a product of design. So basically, you think we know a lot about running an enterprise center. Well, we went back to scratch, using design as a way to think about what is it we're doing. If you were starting and nobody had heard of an enterprise center, you were starting now, what would it do? What would it look like? What should it be like? So the edge actually will come on stream physically as a building in about June or July of this year. We've spent the last 2 years doing all the design work, but the design thinking went in at the beginning in what it will do for the people who will be housed there and the wider community. So the edge is in itself a product of design thinking and a reimagining of things that we thought we already knew. So I think that's probably enough of an introduction.
Thank you very much, John. That was quite interesting. Now let's move towards what we are going to cover on this webinar. So first of all, I want to give you, together with John, an understanding of the RISE, this course, where it actually comes from. Just we woke up in the morning and say, oh, we want to set up, a training course on design for social enterprise. Not quite. It's been 3 years in an European project. So I want just to give you kind of an understanding of the educational content come from. The second part, I want to give you a little bit an understanding of the commitment, the duration, and the 3 Dublin location that we are going to run the course. The third part is really giving you an understanding of the 3 different ways we will use in order to facilitate the course. There will be a part of training, there will be labs, and also there will be mentoring. And the last part is, I want to give you a very brief introduction to the 6 training modules. So what is the content that you actually will acquire through the course? Okay, so let's get started with the first point. Where does the redesign in social enterprise come from? So, John, what would you like to introduce? Because you have better context than me.
Okay. I could go back a long way. Actually, I'll go back to the launch of social enterprise in Slovenia. I was invited to go along and speak at the president of Slovenia, and the prime minister, and the minister for commerce was there. And I was really interested to see what it was they were going to launch. What was their understanding of social enterprise? And I was really impressed. I thought they really understood, they got it. And at the time, we were considering trying to lobby for policy in Ireland. So it was really interesting to see what's happening in Slovenia. However, when I was there as part of my networking, I met 2 guys, one from Croatia and one from Slovenia. And I had a long and interesting conversation with them, and I was really impressed. These were coming fresh to this type of world, and actually they didn't have a lot of the baggage that we had, and they were a good bit younger than me, and I thought, wow, I want to work with these guys at some stage. And we, at that stage, said, we will do some work together. We will find some common project that we can work on together. It took us maybe about 6 or 7 years, but eventually we got approval for a project, an Erasmus Plus project. that we called Realities of Social Enterprise. I won't tell you the real first name. Well, I think you're allowed to use this term. We were going to call it Fuck Ups in Social Enterprise. Now, some of you may have heard about Fuck Up evenings.
Hashtag.
And this was the Croatian partner who was very unorthodox and anarchic. So it was he who said, let's call it Fuck Ups in Social Enterprise. And I kind of felt, with my knowledge of the European Commission, that they mightn't approve a project name like that. However, I knew what he was talking about, and we took the essence of that, and we studied, where do social enterprises really go wrong? We spoke to them in depth all around about 5 countries to see where does it tend to go wrong. And out of that, we put together a training program to address the key areas where mistakes happen. And most of them tend to be strategic mistakes, or presumptions that are made at the beginning and things that are kind of overlooked that later become important. And so out of that, we developed a training program, but we based that training program on a fresh type of approach, design thinking approach. So again, going back to, why are you doing this? What do you hope to achieve out of this? Who are you doing this for? How does the person you're doing this for want to be addressed? How will this affect them? And it should be based upon them, not upon what we can do, but about what they need and what they would like us to do. And we developed the project, and it just was concluding last October, at the very time when the Irish government, who had just very shortly before that launched their policy on social enterprise, and they had a call to say, we want some innovative training projects on social enterprise. And as Boris Johnson might say, we already had one in the oven. So we just took it out and it was oven ready, and we presented RISE, which we slightly changed the name on, or the letters, for redesign in social enterprise. So that's the history.
Pretty much the history. So it just tells you a lot of what Partas has been doing, and in the field of design and applying design on social enterprise. That is really a very new perspective. And let me be honest with you, during the course, we will learn together on how to apply design to social enterprise, because one thing is trying to do in a way that is speculating or academic about it. One thing is when you get really social entrepreneurs like you guys and really putting their hands into it and try to share their experiences with other people in the room. Learning really happens when there is a social context. And this is particularly suited for social enterprise because it's really hands-on. We want to really start to get that change happening in our communities. So just for your information, if you scroll below the presentation, you can see that there is a download link to the manual that John was referring to, if you want to see the studies about the reason why social enterprise fail. Okay, so having given you the context, now I want to move forward towards what is the commitment that you need to put into this project. Obviously, there is some commitment. It takes some of your weekly time to really start to work on your project. So what is also the duration and the 3 Dublin locations that we are actually delivering this course? Now, first, there was a little bit of a confusion here. So what is happening is that we are going to deliver the same course in 3 different locations. Obviously, because there are only 2 trainers in this, need to be 3 different days. So the train is delivered in city center in Dublin Big on a Tuesday, and that is going to start the 24th of March and ends the 9th of June. The same course is delivered in South Dublin, in Partas, in Main Road, on a Wednesday, every Wednesday between the 11th of March to the 27th of May. And we have also another location in North Dublin, in Innovate Dublin, on a Thursday, from the 18th of March to the 4th of June. Now, there is a bit of a logistical problem in there. So the first 2 weeks are not going to be delivered on a Thursday, but just the first 2 weeks are going to be delivered on a Wednesday. just for the first week, and later on every session is going to be on a Thursday.
Can I just clarify something, because in case there's a little bit of confusion. When we say it's in the city centre in the BIC, there are a few locations for the Dublin BIC.
Okay.
This is a brand new location for Dublin BIC, which is just off Stephen's Green. We will send you the details, but it's a brand new space, so it's not going down to either Tara Street or the Guinness Enterprise Centre. So it's just off Stephen's Green. When we say South Dublin, there's often a lot of confusion between South Dublin County and South County Dublin. So we're South Dublin County, not South County Dublin. So it's Tala. So we're just off Stephen's Green, we're in Tala, and we're in Ballymun.
Perfect. Thank you, John, for clarifying a little bit the geography of Dublin, that I'm still quite getting used to it. But anyway, what is really important here to understand that the course is 1 day in last 12 weeks. So it's 1 day for 12 weeks. And the way that is going to work is that you will spend 1 week, that day of the first week, with me and David. I'm going to be responsible for the design part, and David is another trainer that is going to be responsible of more conventional business thinking. And we delivered the session, let's say the first Tuesday in Dublin BIC. Now, the next week, you won't see me and David, but you are going to be part of a lab. A lab, as we will see in the second slides, is more about coaching. So it's not centered on the topic of design or business, but rather is centered on you. And you will be a very important part in there, because you will share with other people in the room what are the obstacles that you have been encountering since last week when you start to work on your project. So just to give you an idea, that is not only acquiring information, but actually the RISE training course is hands-on, where you share the information and you learn to work with your peers. There will be a lot of peer learning happening. So I'm really excited to see this happening, not only from an academic perspective, but really to see those tools, how actually the people actually are starting to use those tools. How do they share what they've learned with their classmates? And just
just to wrap up what Stefano said there. So the entire thing is 12 weeks in all, but only 6 of those weeks are training. So every second week you have a training module. So that's the kind of the main engine, the training. Only every second week. Every other second week you have coaching, or what we're calling labs, and that's not entirely compulsory. We really would like you to attend all 6 training modules. That's really essential. The coaching, you may come, may decide to skip a week. There's no real problem there. It is really very much, it's facilitated peer problem solving. It's not anything to do with design or the training that you've had. So it's not a kind of a catch up or a homework club for the training. It is a different thing, which is saying, listen, this is a particular problem that I'm having, or this is something that my experience tells me will be a problem for me. And you, with your peers, using a brand new methodology it's sometimes used in some very corporate environments, but it's only a newly designed methodology called action learning coaching. And so we will be using that. Again, it's extremely powerful. We've been training in it ourselves for the last number of months, because somebody on the Partas board is a professional presenter of this course. So I think you'll find that really interesting, really useful, but it's not essential. So you're deciding on the level of commitment that's needed. The absolute need is every second week for the modules. And after that, as you find it beneficial to you, come to the coaching.
Absolutely.
The mentoring, then we'll talk about separately.
Yeah, separately. One thing that I'm really actually excited on is we set up an event at the end of the course, because obviously we have 3 different groups. They are going to be trained separately, but we will have an exhibition event where everyone is able to display their work in front of the other people. And that is also a networking event. You have the possibility to mingle with people that you didn't see every week, but the possibility is there. And this also is kind of bringing a project together. What I just anticipate here is that the training and the training part, at least from my perspective, is not only happening in the class, but we will have, let's say, an online community where if you have a question about the training, you can ask that question, and I will be present in the forum, and I will address that question as the other classmates, not necessarily in the same group. The question goes to the classmates in the 3 groups. So the learning, it doesn't stop in that 3-4 hours in the class, but I want to see the learning happenings continuously in the forum. And my experience, I am also an online trainer, is that the more we participate actively during the week, the more we are actually learning, because the learning in design is not something that you can learn from a book or only from Stefano. You need to, is applied learning. It's something that you will actually realize that you are learning when you actually are doing something. And design, I think, is special for that. And bringing this approach to social enterprise really changes.
And actually, once you get into this, you're going to love it, because it becomes really exciting. I mean, you want to. This is a very dynamic new approach. So you will not find it a drudge. You won't find it a kind of, oh my God, have I to do this? No, you'll really get into it.
Okay, so let's explore the third point. Now, we have seen a kind of an introduction to the redesign on social enterprise program. We have spoken a little bit about the commitment, the duration, and the 3 different locations. And please, if there is any question, just if it's not clear, just ask your question. And now let's explore the different, we kind of already spoke about it, but let's focus a little bit on the difference between training, labs, and mentoring now, just to give you a brief understanding. So I can speak quite comfortably about the training because I'm going to deliver part of it. And I can say that there are 6 training modules. So John was mentioning the 6 weeks, and that focus on both strategic and design thinking for business innovation. Obviously, when I say business innovation, I should have written social business innovation. But one thing to bear in mind is that, and I open myself up a bit here, I come from the traditional way of thinking in business. I mean, you need to make money. You need to have a sustainable business model in place. Doesn't matter if you're a social enterprise or not. If you don't have that engine that generates revenue, the problem is if you are only dependent on the funds that you can raise, your impact in society is only limited to the funding that you can raise. Imagine if we can create a business model that generate revenues and we can use that revenues to scale your impact, then is when I think social enterprise are going to look like normal enterprise. And the only difference is that they are mindful to their communities, that they respect their community and they want to make their community better. So sometimes I have a word with social entrepreneurs or social enterprise, and they see profit as a negative aspect. The reality is that profit is only bad when it's made at the expense of society. But if we are able to generate profit in a way that enhances society, I think that is, the next step of the big war capitalism. Is I think we as a society are moving towards that form of business, because if we are not sustainable in our business model, I think mostly the young generation is not even willing to work for a company that is not socially minded. At least I wouldn't. And that is the reason why I collaborate with John and with partners, because I know that there is a social mission in the business. Now, having talked about the training, let's talk a little bit about the labs and action learning coaching. I got that right?
Correct.
Go. Okay, so my understanding, even if I'm not going to facilitate that, is a kind of an opportunity to make yourself vulnerable in a way, not in the bad way, but it's only when we share our fears that we overcome them. So obviously, we in the class there will be people with different knowledge of design and design thinking. There is maybe somebody that already took an online course on design thinking, or maybe there's somebody that is already familiar with the process of design thinking. And why should those people be interested in this course? Is because it's not only the knowledge that you can get on this course, but rather when you start to say, oh, I was through let's say, that part of the design process. And one part that I can tell you straight away is very challenging is conducting interviews with people. And there is something that if you are not used to conduct face-to-face interview can be quite uncomfortable. So going back, not to the training, but to the labs and say, oh, how do you conduct your interviews? And we start to share our feelings. That will be very informative because you might find something out of conducting your interviews that might be beneficial to somebody else that experience completely different feelings. So I think what I'm trying to say is that feelings is very important in when we learn. And when we express ourselves, we share our feelings, then the learning becomes more real and actualized. I don't know if that is the right word. Would you like to add something or?
Yeah, again, just to say about the labs is personal in that it is specific to each person who's there. So there is nothing prepared in advance for the labs. It's the people who arrive there who set the topics, set the agenda. I don't want to, it has been developed academically, but it's also been tested out and proven to work. And it's strange because I give you a very brief idea of what happens at a lab. A participant might say, listen, I've got a particular problem. I don't know how to get people to join my board. Board membership was a problem that we arrived at right across, particularly startups, but that happens right throughout the life of a social enterprise. So somebody might say, I've got a particular problem with that in the group. That person then removes themselves from the group, goes to the other side of the room, turns their back to the group, and the group discusses that person's problem. The person cannot participate in the discussion, but can hear the discussion and can take notes. And then after 10 minutes or so, rejoins the group and feeds back how he heard his problem as an objective person now this time, and how the contributions or the observations of the other members of the group helped, and it's quite interesting how that works. It really does give us the opportunity to see issues which we have in our everyday work from a completely different perspective, and to have a chance to really listen to how others observe it or how others might handle it. It's maybe I'm not doing it justice, but it's a very powerful tool, and I think when you participate in it, you'll realize, oh wow, this is kind of fresh. This is different. So that's kind of what happens in action learning coaching. You do the coaching with each other. It's peer-led. We facilitate it, and that's basically it.
And let me say that just what you were saying, listening actually is a basic component of the process of design. We need to listen. So I would say that labs and the design process actually can, intersect very well, and they overlap. So there is kind of a fit in there.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of like research in a way. You are getting external, independent, objective research on the issues you face.
Perfect. Makes sense. And the last part of the way that we are going to facilitate this course is through mentoring. Now, mentoring, I would say, is like the labs, is not compulsory, but every student in the class are going to have 4 hours in total of mentoring. And if I remember correctly, are going to be 2 hours with me, and is going to be focused particularly on design thinking, and 2 hours with David. And it's up to every one of you to make use of those hours. And in that session is maybe sharing a part of your design process with me and say, Stefano, what do you think about it? What should I, modify in that? Something that obviously can't be done in the classroom because there are 16 of you. This is kind of more personal, but is focused on your design project. And with David is going to be more about your business plan or maybe your business model, and you decide how to use your 4 hours. Okay, so let's go. And I think we are pretty much done in terms of the content. And later on, we start to answer the question that we have got. Now, so what are the 6 training modules? Because obviously, like John was saying, the training is really the central part of the course. I mean, if you leave this course not having understood what design thinking is, we are missing the point. There is no point to run this course. So I want to give you just a very focused introduction of what are the 6 modules in this training course, and is follow pretty much the design thinking process. We start with module 1, developing a design brief and a value proposition. And when I was actually preparing this presentation, I went back to the manual that they developed in the European project. And the number 1 problem on the reason why social enterprise failed was a strategic problem. So basically, the company, when they started, had an idea on which customer to serve and maybe which value, but maybe wasn't really too clear. They needed to spend a little bit more time to clarify which need of which customer we want to address. So in module 1, we write a design brief that is a document that will kind of guide us through the design thinking process. And why is it important to be clear to write that design brief? Is because without the design brief, we go to the second module, the third module, and all of a sudden we lose direction because actually we forgot where we started. So design brief is like your North Star for the project. It keeps you on track. And always in the first module, what we do is also developing a value proposition. So we want to clarify exactly which kind of a persona, and we will specify what a persona is, or which type of customer we want to serve, which type of needs of those customers we want to address, and also maybe what price we are going to charge for our product or service. That isn't the module 1. That is the groundwork. Without that, we can't even start talking about design. We need to start putting the basics. Now, after we clarify that, we go to module 2. That is in 2 weeks' time. In that module, we are starting to talk about research. And obviously, we know research, but in business, what we have been using up to now in terms of research are the conventional research about the user. Okay, where is the user located? So geographic research. But rather, what we do in design are what's called ethnographic research. So we are not just tapping to know where the customer lives or what the age group is or what sex it is, but rather we want to do research based on observation. So, for example, if I want to deliver value to an elderly person, I go where the elderly person live, or I go where my user spends his time. And one thing about design is that most of the time we don't actually speak with the user. Because if we ask questions, the answer that we get is the standard answer, is the status quo. I want a better whatever product you are offering now. What we do in design is actually to become observer, to be able to understand what the customer wants, but is not able to tell us. We call in design unarticulated customer needs that are not really out there. And becoming actually an accurate observer, it takes a bit of effort, but that is the second module, to start to talk about anthropology, start to understand how sociology actually can create value for the design process? How can we use sociology to understand a set of needs that are not clear at the beginning? And obviously, the example that we use all the time in design is that, before the luggage was on wheel, if you went to a traveler and say, what you need, he would have said, well, I need a lighter luggage. The reality is that it didn't need just a lighter luggage, it just need mobility, that is placing the wheels below the luggage or on the luggage. Then after that, we kind of create a design brief, we conduct our research. Now we reach the engine of entrepreneurship, that is creativity, that also is my passion. So module 3 is the most interesting personally, because we are going to explain once for all the difference between creativity and innovation. Something that many business people still confusing. They think creativity and innovation are the same thing. In that session, we were going to see many examples on how in the same companies, actually companies that actually succeed, there is always the creative genius and the innovative genius. The creative genius is somebody that all of a sudden gets this idea that is quite new, fresh, but most of the time, this person has problem to actualize this idea, to translate an idea into a new product. Then this person find somebody to work with that is more towards innovation, and together they create a new product and service that actually create value for the final user. One is the thinker and one is the maker. And if you take all the successful company or most successful companies, for example, Hewlett-Packard, there is always somebody that is more creative, is the creative genius, and the other one that is more focused. Okay, stop thinking, start doing, fail fast and cheap, and ship something that really create value for the users. Now, that after module 3, we are going towards module 4. So at this stage, we have our idea that we started. We put that in a design brief. We conduct our face-to-face research or ethnographic research. We use creativity and innovation to shift our perception, and then the time is action. The time is time to show to our user something that is unfinished. It's not the finished product, but is a product that looks like the real one, but is fake. So for example, if you are developing an app, you don't spend 20,000 euros to code your app, but rather you make a paper prototype. What does it mean? It means that, and I always love to see that in real life when somebody prototype like that. So we call the Wizard of Oz. What does it mean? It means that you kind of jot down all the different screen that your app has, and you get real users to test your app. They have in front of them a piece of paper with your, with your interface just jotted down. And when they press on a tab, you from behind the desk move the new screen in front of them and see how they behave. Now, most of the time you can record their behavior and then look at the way that they are using your prototype. And what happens is amazing. Most of the time, they're using your product in a completely different ways than the way that you thought or imagined. And that is what is really important. So prototyping and testing is very iterative. And in that module, we are going to explain how to start prototyping, how to prototype a product, or prototyping a service, that are two different challenges. And we are going to see in a little bit more depth how to do that. After we have prototyping and test, kind of the design process is kind of finished. What we have to do now, we have to spend few hours to make sure that all our effort that we put into the design process is actually part of a business model. Doesn't really matter what you want to do. What really matters is that you are able to generate value for your user and be able to monetize that. And the business model is basically a 9-block model that enables you to understand, okay, that product generate this different stream of revenues that enable me to generate more product, to make more revenue, and to pay my cost. So we are going to see not only the product and the users, but rather we add towards the product market fit all the different other components of a business model. And now you can see that module 6, that is the business plan and finance, is actually the last one. And this tells you a lot on the fact that this training course is the opposite of the conventional start your own business, because where they start is actually where we finish. The business plan and finance, is only an implementing document. So you are sure that there is a need for your product, you validate the need, you create a business model, and then you are ready, only when you are sure that there is demand for it, to say, okay, my financial projection for the next 5 years are going to be those and those and those. There is no point having a business plan if you don't have a business model. So all the design process ends up with the business model, and only then we can talk about the business plan and the finance. Have I forgot something?
No.
Okay.
There's a lot to cover in a really short space of time. I suppose the challenge is, what would your social enterprise look like if you went through this process? How would you even envisage your social enterprise if you arrived at it through this process? And I can tell you, it's very different. It's very radical. It forces you to think in different ways. And I would be surprised if there were not changes that came about in your own thinking and in your own vision of your social enterprise, having completed these modules.
Okay.
So
basically what we wanted to explain is over, but obviously we said we need to finish at 20 to 3 because I want to leave 20 minutes for questions, because questions are always, for me, interesting. As a designer, I like questions because really challenging. If you have good questions, really make you think. And let me reassure you that I will ask a lot of questions to you guys when we are going to be there, because is the only way that we can grow is when somebody asks the right question, make us think. So let's see, scroll down if we have any question. Okay. So we have Michelle.
Michelle, who can attend the training?
Okay. So do we have a specific requirements for?
And no, in that this is obviously devised for social enterprise, so it can be. That's the kind of the main question we've been asked, over the last number of weeks. You will really benefit, because this is strategic at heart. You will really benefit out of this if you're already running a social enterprise, because it will make you look fresh. It will give you a fresh perspective and a kind of an additional impetus to see things and to act in certain ways. However, if you're thinking about doing a social enterprise, this will help refine the idea and think, okay, I mean, most social enterprises begin with the heart. Somebody sees something that needs to be done and says, somebody needs to do something about that. I'm going to do it. And they hop in and tend to do it first and foremost. And then afterwards think, okay, how do I streamline this better, and how do I organize this better? So this might be the opportunity, if you haven't already started a social enterprise, to do some of this strategic thinking in advance, and to make sure that you're on the button in terms of who you're doing this for and what it might achieve. The fifth module there is about impact. The whole world of social enterprise, social innovation, social entrepreneurship is moving to being centered around the word impact. We will have to ensure we're designing for impact, and we're going to have to learn to measure that impact, and we're going to be funded for impact. So this is crucial, whether you're new or starting. I think even if you were a student, this is very cutting edge. It's very new. It's becoming more mainstream. It's becoming more mainstream in traditional entrepreneurship training also. So, nobody will find themselves excluded from this. And now, we're having said that, we are practically full in 2 of the 3 locations now. So that might be more of a limiting factor than the person's experience or background.
Okay. So I think we are full in Talla and getting quite full in city center.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, we might try and encourage some people to move around. We haven't turned down anybody yet. So
yeah, and also the application that we have now, I mean, most probably they will attend, but we will keep in mind if there is, the possibility, there's some cancellation to get.
Now, I hope we haven't frightened anybody, because there's a huge amount to try and get into the small period of time we've had to try and explain this. Hopefully, it's just whetted your appetite. If a lot of that is just, oh my God, don't worry. That's what the course is to do. So at the end of this, not just will you understand design thinking. Understanding design thinking is one thing, but it's not really an awful lot of use unless you can apply it. So you will definitely leave this course having learned to apply a design approach to your social enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I have to say as a facilitator of the training modules, the training modules are not just theory. It's going to be project-based. So the first time that you come to the class, I will actually ask you to come in the class and to write down your design brief. I want you leaving that class that day with a written document that you can go back to your team and say, guys, this is the starting point. Because the problem that we have in entrepreneurship, generally speaking, is that one day you have a problem and the next day you wake up with a new mind because you're very creative and the problem is changed. So what we have to do, it might be that we write 2 design briefs and we run 2 design thinking process. And that will be even more informative, because along the way, it might happen is that you realize, you know what, I pursued the second idea rather than the first idea, but at least you don't mix them. And most of the time, I think there is good intuition, as John has said, and there is a lot of excitement when you start a social enterprise, but through the process, you get lost. And that is the reason why we start the course with a design brief, and you bring that design brief with you along the 6th training module. And obviously, what might happen through the process is that you refine your design brief. Your design brief is based on the assumption, is your understanding of your company and the problem that you want to solve today. But you will see that when you go out, you start to perform face-to-face interview. You start to look at the product that and the problem that your customer or user is facing. You might say, oh, actually, my design brief was actually insightful, but actually now I can see the same problem with a different perspective. And that is actually what happens when you reach the module number 3, that is about creativity. That is the engine of the design process. But is, again, as John said correctly, is a lot to take in. And if I make a promise, is that it's going to be hands-on, exciting. There will be a lot of interaction with your classmates. And the more you interact with your classmates and the more you share your feelings in the coaching session, the more you will become a better designer. Obviously, I don't expect that at the end of the course, you are a design thinker, that you know everything about design. But what I can guarantee is that the day that you leave the course, the day that is going to be the exhibition, you will be able to explain to other people, what it feels like to be a designer. And that, I think, is going to change your I'm not sure attitude is right, but your understanding of solving a problem. Because design, most of the time, is described as a problem-solving methodology. But what really design is a problem-finding methodology. Is finding or changing your idea of what the real problem is. And that, I think, will change your life, not only as a business person, but will change the perspective on the different problem that you face in your life every single day. At least it's done that to me.
Yeah, I mean, if I could give you an example of when I first came across design, and we had a professor from Belgium. She was a very arty designer type person, and she brought in stacks and stacks of Lego and said, "Make your social enterprise out of that." What? Make? So I'm very, I can conceptualize in my head, and I can do things in my head and all, but she wanted me to make it out of Lego in 3D. I thought, that's stupid. What the hell? She said, "No, do it. Go with me. Just do it." And as I started putting the bricks together, different parts of me engaged with how I saw or visualized or understood what it was I was doing. And the more I kind of did bits and pieces, the more I realized, oh, actually, hold on. Yeah. If you go in, yeah. Oh. So it was like learning to walk in another person's pair of shoes. Suddenly I started to see things from a different perspective. It's like as if I had only engaged my rational mind, but now I was engaging my hands. I was engaging my senses, my other senses, in fully understanding what it was I thought I already fully understood. So if you suspend a little bit of disbelief and go with it, you'll be astonished where it will bring you. Can I just say, by the way, to Nora, that would be great, because Ballymun is the one we still have some places in. So if you can, we'll switch that for you happily to Ballymun. And we'll be back in touch with you anyway by email afterwards.
I think you're referring to the Lego Serious Play, isn't it? I think the definition.
Well, actually, she didn't use Lego Serious Play. Lego have developed Serious Play for companies and things. This was just ordinary kids Lego that she had. So the big pieces, like, nothing fancy, old Lego that she had gathered, and also Mala or plasticine, whatever you call it. We could use Mala as well, and we had to, so suddenly you were hands-on, literally hands-on, trying to interpret something that you felt or rationally perceived. But the hands-on thing.
But you started saying that you learn with your hands.
Yeah.
Something I wasn't used to, but it's very.
I very quickly see the part of me that would have said, "That's stupid. I'm not doing that." But I didn't, because I couldn't get out of it, so I had to do it. And once I started doing it, I realized, actually, there's a huge amount in this. There is something magical in this. Actually, the more I did it, the more I realized, what kind of a person am I that I thought I had all the answers in my fantastic head? No, there's much more. There's much more involvement needed to make sure that we have the right answer, to make sure I understand the problem, to make sure I have examined all the possibilities of what can be the solution for somebody. So that's why I say it's really exciting, because this is going to be waking up in a fresh way to something you already care passionately about. So you're really going to be engaged.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I want to add, maybe I didn't do that in my introduction, is say, Stefano, where did you learn design? Because, it's interesting to know where your trainer actually acquired the knowledge of design, and how did you end up to be an online trainer on design? That is quite unique. So basically, I study entrepreneurship here in Ireland in IADT. And one thing that I wasn't really happy with is that what we were studying at that time was management. So the three topics were HR management, marketing management, and accounting. So I said, is this actually pointed toward entrepreneurs? Is made for entrepreneurs or for managers? It was made for managers. So what I discovered, and you go back already 8-9 years, is that there was an online course developed by University of Virginia, Professor Jean Litka, that is one of the leading thinkers about design thinking. And I just enrolled. was a free course called MOOC, and I got so engaged in and I'm living of the word that I'm saying. The more you're going to be interactive in the course, the more you will learn. I got so engaged in the forum that eventually I received an email from the professor, Jean Litke, say, actually, we are developing a much in-depth course in design thinking and is going to be sold through the university. Would you like to become one of our mentors? Because what I realized is that they were the expert and I became the facilitator, in a way that my question that I was asking through the course helped them to explain points that maybe other students didn't understand. So I acquired the same mindset. And what I want to do in this course is also showing you a prototype. So basically, I just say, oh, prototype is this. I want you to experience what a prototype is. I'm prototyping my own product that is on an online school. And I want you, if you want to experience what a prototype is, to join my online school and see what you like, what you don't like, the rough part, because it's not a finished product, but at least you can experience what a prototype is. Just to give you an idea that when I say it's full on, I am in the process of design, the Edge is in the process of design, and I think the whole Partas as a company went lately through a process of redesigning many things. So as I said, it's not only what I've learned from the books, but is really on real life experience.
Any more questions there?
No, I think if there is...
Either we've lost everybody or we've explained it so fully that everybody gets it and has no questions. Any more questions?
No, then let's ask a question. Would you like that we perform in the future more webinar like this? And maybe even through the course, would you think that webinar is a nice way to have a conversation, to share information, is something that you like, or is a new format for you, you're not confident? If you want just to share your question, your answer in the chat box, because we nearly reached the hour, so I want to finish at 3 o'clock unless there is. But explain everything really clear.
Thanks, Aisling.
Cheers. Lovely. And
so we've not gone viral yet. No, I know so little about this world. I'm just too old for this.
What is going to happen next is we had many people sign up for the live webinar. But what happened when you are an entrepreneur is that 10 things come up at the time that you have the webinar and you can't attend. So this webinar is actually recorded, and I'm going to upload this on YouTube and then write a blog post about this in the Edge in the website. And
Thanks,
I will send out a newsletter containing the recording of this webinar. So I think was
yeah. I love good food and fine dining and things. So hopefully this was an amuse guy. Hopefully we have titillated your taste buds a little bit and you're dying to get started with us.
Yeah. And by all means, if you know anyone that might be interested either in design or social enterprise, or maybe both, if you want to spread the word about this course, as I said, mostly in the north side, in Ballemont, we still have free seats. Don't say seats, that word is forbidden, but we places, and we will be very happy. And also, if you want to invite other social entrepreneurs in the forum, in the Edge, we are very welcome. We are welcoming anybody that can bring their understanding of social enterprise, that want to ask questions or share their knowledge. Is pretty much an open forum as long as we keep the focus on the social aspect of business innovation. So I think thank you, everybody. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. It was delighted to be able to join you.
And you will receive an email from me with the recording of this webinar. Thank you very much all. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.